now, so I'm sure I've got it.
Okay, great.
Yes, it will be up to YouTube probably by tomorrow sometime.
Okay, awesome.
I've already had one parent ask that question.
Yeah.
And my number is okay, Melissa, good job.
All right, Melissa, you're like me. You're already a homeschooler. We are multitasking all the time, just like regular women. All women multitask.
We put a couple of signs up at the church in case people didn't get the message that it is on Zoom with my phone number. So
Okay.
they
So you
can
might need to
text
answer
me
the
to
phone.
get the.
Okay. And then those people are going to need this recording, at least for the beginning of it. So
Yes.
Okay. Well, I will start at 5:02.
Okay.
Just to give everybody time to get on, because I know how I am. If I'm not leading the meeting, I'm like right on at 5:02, 5 o'clock or whatever on the hour, but then I'm not really ready to go until 2 minutes after. So. Okay, and guys, we're going to cover tonight what you need to go through the process of legally becoming a homeschooler in Pennsylvania, and then also just like sort of how to start thinking about, dealing with starting your homeschool year. We have a bunch of things coming up planned. This is 5 weeks, BeckiJo, or 6? 6 weeks. So we're going to cover like all of the major topics, like how do you homeschool multi-age family, what are the types of scheduling options that you could use or formats that might work for you. We're going to try to give you a couple of options so you can like have some things in mind, because what you think might work actually might not work. So you always need a plan B. And we're going to deal with math on the 3rd session. So we're going to just talk about a bunch of different math curriculums, because I know that's like the emergency. We called that one the math emergency, because we know that some of you might be like, okay, well, we can handle language arts, but like what, math, you need to do it every day consistently for the year, and you need to use the same thing. So we're going to cover that. And that was as quick as we thought we could handle covering that one, just because we thought people needed the legal information and the scheduling information first. We're going to talk about like support systems, and what else are our topics, BeckiJo? We have a couple. I feel like all of them are good, and we really tried to be like, what do people actually need to know? And we don't want to waste anybody's time or expect you to be, on a really long meeting. So all right.
We'll talk about co-ops and what some of those options are. We'll talk about homeschooling high school. It doesn't have to be as scary as it seems.
Right. That's right. So can you guys see my screen? Can you see my screen? I just asked you, BeckiJo.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And I have a little bit of a scheduling issue, so I might have to get off of here once I'm done the presentation at around 6 o'clock. The presentation might not last that long, and rejoin on my phone. So if I have to do that, I apologize, but BeckiJo is the host of this meeting, so she's here. And we're going to take questions at the end. So please like jot them down or try to remember. Okay, so this week we're going to cover 2 topics: how to comply with the Pennsylvania law for homeschooling, and also how to get ready for homeschool. So these are our topics. All right, let's see if I could. Okay, so the first thing you might want to know is where to find the law. And it's helpful if you actually read the law. It's not super long or complicated. But the best place that we're going to recommend that you find it is a website called hslda.org, which is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. And I'm actually going to go there now. Can you see my screen still?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the HSLDA website. And if you go to this legal tab, there's a drop-down menu, and it will take you to state homeschool laws. And the HSLDA will, if you join, it's about, I think, $125 or $135 for the year. And they will cover you in terms of legal services if you have any trouble with anything, if you do something wrong, or if the school district hassles you. I know my cousin, she lives in Valley Forge, and she said that the school district started asking for things that she knew that they shouldn't be asking for. And so she just called HSLDA, and she said they dealt with it, and then they would just, send her copies of the communication she had with the school, or that they had with the school district, so she didn't have to hassle with it. Okay, so this little chart, actually, this is incidental, but you can see that this is showing you how much regulation relatively there are amongst the states. And so we are one of these red states that are highly regulated, but please don't let that intimidate you, because it's not as bad as it sounds from that. And we're going to walk you through it, and you can watch this again if you need to.
And quite honestly, when I started homeschooling, I personally liked regulation. I like that there's a little bit of I like meeting with my evaluator. So that's.
So BeckiJo and I, we see there's diversity amongst the homeschoolers, because I feel like they just leave me alone and that compulsory school is a terrible thing. So there you go. Okay. So I went to the state of Pennsylvania, and it took me here, and I'm going to click on how to comply with the Pennsylvania homeschool law. There's a video here that I have not watched, but you're welcome to. But okay. Oh no, now I don't.
You were on it, the screen before. It was the
Yes.
screen before.
Okay,
I thought.
homeschooling under the homeschool statute, because that's what most of you are doing. There are a couple other things that you could do if you're a certified teacher in Pennsylvania, etc. But this is, most of us fall into this category. And if you don't fall into option one and you think you're something else, then, you know, do that. But this will tell you what you have to do to register with the school district, what you have to do in terms of time spent and subjects covered, and then maintaining a portfolio and all of this. So it's helpful, especially if you're just starting to homeschool, if you read through this so that you know, and you can see it's not super intimidating. Okay, so that's where we're going to recommend that you find the law. And now we're going to tell you how to comply with the law. All right, I got ahead of myself somehow. Nope. Okay, so basically there are 6 steps, and some of them are pretty easy. So the first thing you're going to need to do is have a high school diploma or equivalent. If you are a parent that for some reason doesn't have a high school diploma or equivalent, then your spouse needs to, or the child's other parent just needs to be the supervisor for the homeschool. If you have a situation where you're worried about this, please contact me or BeckiJo, and we'll help you figure out how to handle your situation. Okay, so then you're going to file 2 things with the school district. You're going to file a thing called an affidavit, and you're going to file another piece of paper called your objectives. And we're going to talk about those first. But those are the 2 things that you need to take to Southern New York if you're in this school district, or Dallastown, wherever you happen to be, and you need to give it to them. And that is what registers you to homeschool. Okay, I'm sorry, something about this is flipping. Okay, and then you need to teach the required subject, keep track of your days, and maintain a portfolio. So those are the 3 things that you need to do during the school year, and we're going to go over those also. Pennsylvania requires that you give some kind of standardized test to your child in grades 3, 5, and 8. This is also not something you should be intimidated by. You just need to figure out how to standardize test. We're going to give you a suggestion to make it really easy for yourself. It doesn't matter what grade your child gets on that test or how well they do. You just have to do it and show it to your evaluator. The school district will actually never know what your child received in terms of a score on those tests. You just have to do it as part of complying with the law, and that's only in grades 3, 5, and 8. We're going to talk about that again also. Then you want to receive an evaluation from a qualified evaluator. We will explain what that means and what an evaluation is. And then you submit your evaluation paper to the school district by June 30th. So if you guys want to screenshot this, BeckiJo and I kind of made this up a little bit because we thought it would be simple. And then we're going to go on to explain each of these steps, except high school diploma or equivalent. We're going to assume that you know what that is. Okay, so an affidavit is a legal paper that states your intention to the school district. And this is the one that BeckiJo was handing out at the different meetings that we attended. She had a couple of file folders with things in there. So if you received a file folder at a homeschool meeting from BeckiJo, you have one of these, but we can also give this to you. This is from CHAP. If you see down here, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but
You
The
can.
Christian Homeschool Association of Pennsylvania, which is, they do the big conference in Lancaster every year and stuff. This is theirs. So a lawyer has made this, and you fill in your information. The only thing that can be a little bit confusing about this is that you are the supervisor of the school. Your school is your house, and the telephone number for the school is your telephone number. So this will say, I attest that I, the name of the supervisor, am the parent, guardian, or legal custodian of the child. And you can use this for more than one child. So if you're homeschooling 6 kids or however many, you could put all of their names in here, and you don't have to have an affidavit per child. Okay, and then the program will be conducted at this address, and that address is your home address, wherever you intend to homeschool. And the telephone number is going to be your telephone number in case the school district needs to contact you for some reason.
I'm going to inject here a minute,
Yes.
Kandra. So when
Okay.
you put your child's name, you can prevent a call from the school by putting their age as well. The law allows that you can put their name and age. You do not need to give a birth date. You do not need to give a grade. If a school asks for it, that's what we call overreach, and you do not need to provide those.
Right. The information on here, you do have to provide their age, I believe, right, BeckiJo? That's what you're saying? So that they're not following back up with you. You can tell them how old your child is. But other than that, if they are asking you for additional information, they are overreaching from what their boundary is between the school district and your private homeschool. And that's where, you might want to hesitate to answer, call HSLDA, call, another homeschool mom, call us, and we'll try to help you figure out. Southern York is not, has not asked for anything additional or given us any kind of trouble. So,
but Southeastern, Allenstown, Redline, all of these school districts, many of the local school districts have begun doing that this year. We're finding across the state that is consistent, and it seems to be a direct result of losing so many students to homeschooling in the last 18 months.
Right, which is why I would also not be surprised if Southern York changed their attitude a little bit here also. So if this makes you at all nervous, which it does me, just because I don't want to deal with it or make a mistake or, be not, make sure I join HSLDA. So it's basically legal insurance for homeschoolers. Okay, this needs to be notarized. That means you need to sign it in front of somebody who is designated as a notary. You have to take a class and get like some kind of license. Your bank always has a notary. So if your bank is open, you should be able to go in there and talk to one of the people in the little offices, and you might have to wait a little while, a couple of minutes. But they are mostly notaries in there, and they will do it for free if you have an account at their bank. So that's what I always do. There are notaries around town that you can pay. BeckiJo knows of a real estate company that had actually contacted her and offered to do notarization for homeschoolers, and they are in York, like towards the city of York, right? BeckiJo, so like if you live in that area and you want to know that
near Market Street.
Market Street. We'd be glad to provide it for you, but don't sign this until you're in front of that notary, and you need to give the school district the original of this notarized document. You can't like have it notarized, make a copy and give them the copy. They want the actual thing, the actual piece of paper that was notarized. However, I do recommend that you make a copy of this for your records before you turn it in. So you should keep a copy, but you have to give them the original. Okay, now, so that's the first document that you need for the school district. The second one is your objectives. And here I have educational objectives. This one is for a elementary student, and this one is for a high school student. No, that's not what this is. These are both elementary school students. I'm sorry. This is BeckiJo's on the left. So she actually tells them some of what she's going to do. I think even she would recommend that you are vague, and because they just don't really need this much information.
As a teacher, I think that's vague. So
right, that's right. So mine is even more vague. You could just say in every single subject, make adequate annual progress in this subject. You do not have to, but you have to address that you are going to cover all of these topics, all of these subjects that are listed out in the homeschool law. So you can cut and paste these, contact us, we'll send you one. YHSA has them, chat probably has some on their website. There's lots of places to pull these, but you need to have your objectives. This doesn't have to be signed or anything. It has to be turned in with your affidavit. Those two
Nor,
documents. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, nor is it something that anyone is going to check in the end. So as
Right.
an evaluator, when you come to me, when you come to the evaluator in the springtime, we don't refer back to those objectives. You are not held to those objectives.
Right.
They're really just kind of a hoop to jump through.
Yeah, it's just a formality, basically. I think every homeschooler would agree.
Yes.
Okay, so the secondary, so you've got elementary subjects that need to be covered, and then secondary, which would be 7th through 12th. And the secondary objectives are a little bit different. And so here's a couple of documents that BeckiJo was offering. So if you have a secondary student and you talk to her and she gave you a folder, you have this in your folder. But these are the subjects that need to be covered. When you get to the secondary level, you can earn high school credits in 7th and 8th grade. You do not have to. But you're more concerned about earning a certain amount of credits in the correct subjects in order to receive a diploma, or in order for your child to receive a diploma. So you need to think a little bit differently when you get to this age group in terms of credits and how many do they have if you're pulling them out of school, how many have they already earned, you know, how are you going to spread them out across the years that you're going to be homeschooling in order to help your child earn a diploma. So here's a form. Here is, I think this is kind of like a summarization of the law. And then here is an example of secondary objectives. And you could just say earn 1 credit in English or something as your objective for English or whatever subject it is. Okay, yeah.
And I would recommend that you talk to, you could talk to an evaluator or an experienced homeschooler who has homeschooled high school when you pull your child out. I've had the chance to sit down with different families and look at, okay, what credits do they already have and what do they want to earn? You also need to know that when you pull a child out to homeschool them in high school and you go to put them back in high school, the high school does not have to accept any of the credits that your child has earned at home. So really, when you pull them out of high school, you pretty much need to commit to homeschooling them to graduation.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's right. Yeah, I've been told that by several people that you know, they will not take your credits if you try to put your kid back in, which is unfortunate. That's, I think, a violation of your freedom as a parent, but you know, that's apparently the situation we're in. Okay, so I would say do not over comply. Don't give them more information than they need, because none of that is helping you. They basically, the state requires that we are answerable to the school district, but we don't want to give them more information than they need because part of the benefits of homeschooling is privacy. And then if you need to make objectives for a child with an IEP or a disability, they must be signed by a special education teacher. And we have a recommended person that you.
So a couple of things about overcompliance. The main reason, one of the reasons not to overcomply is because the homeschoolers that came before us fought really hard for the freedoms that we have now. And this law was updated in 2014 and it was a tough fight that they had. So we don't want to overcomply and lose the freedoms that we already gained.
Right.
And your objectives for a child with an IEP may be very much as general as someone else's objectives, but they must be signed by a special education teacher.
Right. And so Anita Marchesani is a person that we recommend. She will sign your objectives for $15. She's like a local Christian person that
and she'll do it all through email for you.
What did you say, BeckiJo?
She will do it all through the email for you.
Right. So we've got you covered. If you need this information again, just watch the video again or contact us. Okay, so required subjects, you're going to cover in elementary, these subjects. You do not have to cover every subject every year. So that's similar to, the way we think about high school. Maybe you don't take social studies every year, or obviously you don't take health every year. So those kinds of subjects like music and art, or geography, science, like if you don't get it covered this year because you're just trying to make sure that your kid is learning to read and learning to, do basic addition and subtraction or something, like that's okay. You can cover these in a different year. We just wanted to explain that this is all laid out in the law and it is published a lot of different places. So
the only thing that must be covered every year is safety education.
Right. And so this could be whatever you decide. So because you're the supervisor of your school, you are determining not only what does a school day consist of and whether you've done a school day today or not, but also what is adequate to fulfill the requirements of your program. So you have to cover fire safety for some reason in Pennsylvania. And so like one of the things that we have done is gone to Home Depot. Now, this is post-COVID, but we used to go to Home Depot most years. They would set up fire trucks and have fire safety people talking in the parking lot every year in, I believe, October. And so we would go to that and we would listen to some of the firefighters. We'd go through like the sample house trailer and talk about different hazards. And then, we would go home and maybe make a plan or go over our safety plan for if there were a fire in our own house. So something as simple as that would cover that. You don't have to do like fire safety once a week or something like that. Okay.
The best time to do fire safety is Fire Safety Week, which is, I'm trying to find the week. It begins Sunday, October 3rd this year.
Okay. And then BeckiJo is my evaluator, and I always make a list of what I've done, and I put on there for health and safety, I said COVID. Like just because, we were spending so much time discussing like, well, how are germs transmitted and, mask or not mask, like, I mean, we're just discussing it so much. And obviously, we do health and safety with our kids constantly. When they put a Band-Aid on, are you using Neosporin, all of these things. So this can be as formal or informal as you want. If every 5 years you want to do a formal like first aid class with your kids or something, do that. Whatever you want to do, whatever you think is appropriate for your family. Okay, so you do need to track your days somehow. You could do this on your phone. I do it on like a calendar, like this middle one where I can kind of see the whole year at a glance. And I just circle the days that I have done school. Now, you need to have 180 days. However, you can't start until you turn in your affidavit. So if you just pulled your kids out of school yesterday and you're registering as a homeschooler today, you cannot start tracking days until you've actually turned in that affidavit and objectives paperwork to the school district. But once you start, you decide what a school day is. And so I always end up having way more because if my kids do a formal activity, I count it as a school day. And then if we do school, like, math or the subjects at home, I count it as a school day. But you can decide what a school day is. So if you feel like your kids have learned something, maybe you read a book today and you count that as a school, like there's no criteria. You set your own criteria. When you get to high school, you do have to earn credits. So you need to think about the credits a little bit differently. And this is how you can calculate a high school credit. 120 hours. BeckiJo has this wonderful little form that you could fill in like the little piece of pie for every 15 minutes. So if your child spends time researching, reading, attending a class, having a discussion, anything related to the subject that they're receiving a credit in, you can fill in a little bubble for every 15 minutes they do. And then once they get to 120 hours, they have received they have done the equivalent of what a credit would be. You could also go through 2/3 to 3/4 of a textbook, because in school they typically don't finish the whole textbook, or you could have your child write a 10-page research paper. So these are sort of like rules of thumb or for what you could consider to be a high school credit if you have a high schooler. And perhaps your child is doing something for hours and hours and hours, and maybe, it's not an academic subject, but they could get a credit for it. Maybe this is a dance class, or maybe they do 4-H, or maybe they, work on cars out in the backyard with their dad or something like that. Those things could be counted as a credit. You do have to write a transcript for each course, meaning that you write the title and description of the course and what it was covered. But your evaluator can help you do that.
And I do not keep, for my high schoolers, I didn't keep the hour sheet for most classes. We use that more for like a phys ed course where it might be little bits of time here and there, but overall you don't need to keep that hour sheet religiously.
Right. That's just helpful, like, so that you can get an idea. You could fill it out at the end of the week, just so that you have some idea, like, am I doing enough? Have we done enough? Are we halfway to, full credit? Or maybe your child does a certain amount and it's not a full credit, but you could give them a half credit. Okay, so the other thing you want to do is maintain a portfolio. And this consists of maintaining a reading list and then having 3 samples of work in each subject that you want to have reviewed. This will only be shown to your evaluator. BeckiJo was handing out this sheet for a reading list, so you could use that. You might have that if you have one of those folders that she was giving out. What I do is have my kids bring like a stack of books that they have read over the school year, and then I like type them onto a list. As I've gotten to be a more mature homeschooler, I have realized that the reading list is especially important when you're talking about what textbooks you used for different subjects, more than like, my kid did this much free reading or whatever, because they just want to see like what quality and level of interaction with the text is your student getting. And, it gives them an idea. It gives your evaluator an idea of what's really going on. Oh, I'm familiar with that curriculum. My child used that book or whatever. It also helps your evaluator to get to know, your child in your homeschool. So I would say to put the textbooks or the curriculum books that you are using on a regular basis on that reading list would be more important than like, which novels did your kid read that year? And then 3 samples of work in each subject. You would want ideally a sample from the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. If your child is using, like, say, a math workbook and the whole thing is bound together, you could just bring the math workbook. Your evaluator just needs to see that you have been doing work in that subject over the course of the year. You could do 3 papers that your child wrote in their writing class, or in, however you're doing writing. You could say, okay, well, this one's from the beginning of the year, this one's from the end of the year. But if it's not chronological like that, just 3 samples of work. And your evaluator may not look at every single sample. They just need to look at what they determine is important for them to evaluate you properly. BeckiJo, what would you like to say about this?
Thank
I know you have good input.
couple of different things for your reading list. Definitely the textbooks. Also, some of the books that you've read aloud to your children, or that they've listened to on an audio recording. You can put on podcasts if your kids are into podcasts, or videos that they've watched. We really just want to kind of see what some of the input is and see what they're learning from. And it does just give us kind of a broader picture of what your child's learning. And wait a minute, I think as an evaluator, I'm looking for sustained progress. So what I'm looking for in those samples is, are they showing that they've made some progress in their learning throughout the year? That's what legally we have to look for.
Right. And you just kind of want to help your evaluator, because the evaluator, and we'll talk about this in a minute, is really just putting their name, their stamp behind your homeschool. And so you want to give them the information they need to be confident to be able to do that. But the school district itself, the state of Pennsylvania, doesn't look at the information. Your evaluator is really a barrier between you and the school district. Okay, so standardized tests, you only need to do this in 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade. You can standardize tests more often than that if you want to, but you have to do it in 3rd, 5th, and 8th in order to comply with the law in Pennsylvania. You as a parent cannot proctor your child's test, but anybody else can. So an older sibling, a neighbor, a grandparent, a co-op teacher, a friend could proctor your child's test. You just can't do it. That's one of the rules. your child's score does not matter. So I think that the idea of this standardized testing is so that you are like forced to see how your child would line up against the grade level that they're in. So this is really for your private information. It's just that the state insists that you do it. And so you need to have like the printout from the results or whatever to show your evaluator. Your evaluator will probably not even look at, unless you have a concern and you're trying to figure out like, is my child behind, or is there a learning disability or something like that. Your evaluator is probably not even going to look at the score of this test. I don't think I've ever had an evaluator look at the score of a test. But you do need to have that when you go to be evaluated at the end of the year as part of your compliance. And so we want to recommend that you try the CAT test, which is the California Achievement Test. I know in these times this is ironic. But the cheapest option is from a website called academicexcellence.com, and the computer will act as a proctor. So you could do it in your own home. You don't even have to recruit anybody. And then if you type the code FIRSTCAT in at checkout, you can receive $5 off. So this is not a big deal. You just have to do it, fit it in. I think it ends up costing about $20, right, BeckiJo?
Yes.
Once you get the $5
somewhere in there. And one of the things that the one reason I like the CAT test is it's skills based. It actually, as what's different from the PSSAs is it actually can tell you things about your child's skills for the most part, within reason, depending on how your child tests. I like to look at it as a tool. When my kids would take it, I would look at it and I would say, in my first couple of years, I made my kids test both years because I was very nervous. I was new to homeschooling. And it just told me, okay, we might want to work on this area. More often than not, you find out that the areas you're most concerned about, they're actually stronger than you realize. Very few children don't test better than public school students do. And so you will find that it is not difficult at all to do. And I like to just look at it as a tool myself.
I will also say that you can legally receive the right to standardized test with your school district. So your school district has to let you test. If you want to go in there for whatever standardized test they're doing, you would have to attend, your child would have to attend on the appropriate day. Typically homeschoolers don't want to do that because then the school district does have access to the record of whatever they received in terms of how well they did on the test. And school districts use the standardized tests to receive additional funding. And most of us don't want to lend our carefully curated homeschool children who tend to be, pretty smart and capable. We don't want to lend their skills to the school district in order to help them get more money. That's against the homeschool mentality, I guess.
Yeah.
But you can do that. Like if that is more comfortable for you and you want the school district to do it, they are required to.
What I will say is the school district's tests, what they do, the PSSAs, are not a skills-based test. They are not a test. The schools do not even use them as a tool on what to teach or what skills to work on, because they are not designed to be a tool at all. So
it might not, you're saying it might not actually be helpful to somebody.
I would not
result of a PSSA.
As a parent, I wouldn't find it helpful, and the teachers don't find it helpful.
Right.
Which is why they have to teach to that test specifically.
Right. Okay. So the second to last step is you have to receive an evaluation. So an evaluator has certain criteria, and then they've been like registered through your school district or to be able to evaluate in Pennsylvania. Typically, the people who do this are teachers who were certified in a state, like had a teacher certification at some point. That's the typical profile. That is not the criteria, but that's typically who you're going to end up with, as an evaluator. Either that or a really experienced homeschooler who has some connection to education and they have to have taught classes. So YHSA, you can find lists of evaluators through YHSA, which is the York Homeschooling Association. So you can join that for, I believe, $35. And then when you renew year after year, it's like 25. And then there's also a website called Homeschooling in York, and they publish lists of evaluators. If you need help finding an evaluator, those are really good resources. And then, you can always contact us. Expect to pay about $35 per child. I know if you are under financial hardship and you are scraping to, be able to afford to homeschool, and this is a hardship to your family, there are people who will evaluate your child for either what you can afford or, at no cost. So don't feel like if you're like $35 per kid, and I have 3 kids and that's like $105 and that's a terrible expense for you, don't worry. This community in Pennsylvania homeschoolers will help you find an evaluator that will do it, at a cost that you can afford, which might be nothing. But that's typically what you would expect to pay because they make a little bit of money in order to spend all of this time with you. And so you're going to set up a time to meet with them. And then it's just going to be kind of like a sit down chat. And you're going to show them your portfolio, your list of school days, and then you're going to typically bring your child with you, and your evaluator is going to interview your child. BeckiJo very nicely says this is a celebration of your homeschool year. She's always excited to talk to the kids about what they really enjoyed and talk to the moms about, what went really well, what did you struggle with? And some homeschool evaluators will really try to help guide you or give you advice if that's what you're looking for. Some homeschool evaluators will just basically sign your paper. So you could look for somebody who will fit your personality. So the best way to do that is to kind of ask around. Like if you're an unschooler, you could find an unschool evaluator who will sign your paper. But if you're doing like I teach my kids Latin and I do, lots of complicated stuff. And I want somebody to kind of appreciate that I did that. Right. So, I don't want somebody to just sign my paper. And I've tried a bunch of different people. Like, I think I was evaluated by a different person every year that I've homeschooled in Pennsylvania. And that's just because I never really found somebody who was not within a really difficult driving distance to do it every year, or they got full and I had to find somebody else. So it doesn't have to be the same person every year. You could go to one person and not like them, and then you just find somebody else the next year. But I would recommend that you schedule early. I feel like homeschool evaluators start to schedule in like February-ish. So like when you're looking at summer camp and when you're looking at like, I don't know, private schools for the next year, like that kind of season is when you want to start thinking about your evaluator, because homeschooling is exploding right now. And especially this year, I mean, it's only going to get worse. So evaluators get overbooked and most of them just only have so much time. And so try to find somebody that you think would fit your personality based on a recommendation from a friend, or you could even call and maybe interview them quickly and then just get on their schedule as quickly as you can.
And
okay.
a couple of things about the evaluations. As an evaluator by law, I am attesting to the fact that you taught 180 days, that I saw a reading log, and that I interviewed your child, and I saw a portfolio of some sort. That's what I'm attesting to when I sign off on an evaluation. And so those are the things. That's why it's really important that your child be there. Now, one year my son was already working at summer camp by the time we had our evaluation coming, and we didn't know he was going to be gone that early. Our evaluator let him write a paper, an essay on what he'd done that year, and she accepted that from him. So most evaluators will work with you. And as far as the 35 per kid, most evaluators have family discounts. And like Kandra said, most of us are willing to work with you. The biggest thing is to schedule it early. And it really is hard for an evaluator when you choose to get an evaluation after that June 30th deadline. I just received a message today from someone who needs me to try and do an evaluation this week for them. And it does get hard because we're trying to do other things too.
Right. Right. Most of them are homeschooling moms or, running a co-op or doing something that is, taking a lot of their time outside of being just an evaluator. There was one more thing I was going to say. Oh, in terms of forming a portfolio, just don't throw everything away. Like I just kind of like let things accumulate. I have like a file folder per kid, which is probably more organized than you even need to be. And I'm not particularly organized in this respect, but like if your kid does something great, put it in a file folder with their name on it. And then you just get that file folder out at the end of the year and grab their math workbook and a couple other things that would show and just take it in. This is not something that you need to stress about at all. As long as you have something to show. All right, and then you want to submit your evaluation to the school district. These are two examples of homeschool evaluation sheets that homeschool evaluators, this one on the right is BeckiJo's, and then the one on the left is a different teacher. But this is what they will give you. They will put your name, your child's name on it. They will sign it, and then you take this to the school district. That's it. But the deadline is June 30th. So I'm not actually sure what happens to these people that are being evaluated in September for the past school year. But you don't want to find out. So, and the best thing to do is actually, if you decide that you're going to continue to homeschool the following year, if you take your affidavit, your objectives for the following school year and your evaluation for the previous school year all together at once before June 30th, and then you can start counting days on July 1st for homeschool. So if you, like, we went on some educational trips this summer, my kids went to summer camps that would, that were educational. So those things can certainly count as school days. Once you have your next year's affidavit and objectives in, but just try to get this in on time. And it's not a big deal. And this comes again from your evaluator. You don't have to come up with this document yourself. They will hand it to you.
And the one on the left is the one that I use for elementary students.
Okay.
And middle school students. The one on the right, and it has another teacher's name because someone asked me if they could have a copy of mine. And then the one on the right is the one that I use once they get into high school, because in high school, it really is better if you have a narrative. So some evaluators charge more for high school. Most do not, but you'll have that narrative paragraph explaining a bit more. This one was extremely detailed because it was the student's graduation evaluation.
And the other thing is, we also want to recommend that anytime you submit paperwork to the school district, that you get a receipt. So when you originally submit, and I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you this, when you submit your affidavit and objectives, you want to ask them for a receipt. Southern New York is really good about just giving you a receipt. You don't usually have to ask for it. They're totally prepared to give you one. You just want proof that you submitted it, because otherwise, they could say, well, we never got it or whatever. They could lose it. I mean, not through any, fault of anybody, but also they will eventually, after a couple of weeks, send you a letter saying that your home education program has been approved. So I recommend that you keep a copy of your notarized affidavit, that you keep a copy of your objectives, and that you keep that letter that they send you saying that your homeschool program has been approved. I have never needed that letter, but it would be nice to have if you did have some kind of problem or needed to prove, like if they lost the record or something and said, oh, well, we never approved you. And you can say, well, I have this letter. Okay, so should we take questions?
Probably a good idea.
Okay, let's take questions about how to comply with the law. If anything that we just discussed needs to be clarified, or if we didn't cover something, or if you have like a quirky situation and you just want to know what to do. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Bill,
did you just raise your hand? I'm super not high tech, so you kind of have to. Do you have a question, Bill? I see your hand raised.
You're muted at the moment.
Oh yeah, Bill, you're muted if you want to unmute.
While Bill is unmuting.
Okay, this is Elizabeth. This is Elizabeth.
Oh, hi, Elizabeth.
My name is so long, it's shorter to use Bill. My question is, being a new homeschool mom with a special needs child, can I didn't get those papers, all those documents. Is it a way I can get them?
Actually, I will have, if you would like one, I'll put your name on a folder and you can get it on Thursday when you come to laugh, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Problem solved.
Yep.
And if your child doesn't have an IEP already, BeckiJo, you wouldn't have to have.
No, it does not need to be signed off.
Signature. So if the school district is not aware that your child has special needs, then you don't need to go through any additional steps. Okay, Brittany, do you have a question?
Hi, yes, my name is Brittany Hartman. I just actually decided with my husband last night that we will be doing homeschool, so we are definitely new to the idea.
Congratulations.
We are currently in a REACH charter school and was reviewing some content for our 6th grader, and it just was not satisfying to what we are willing to be teaching our children right now. Right. So that was the main decision for us. So I guess my question first is, I know about doing the affidavit and the list of, oh, what did you call them?
Objectives.
Yeah, objectives. But I guess don't sign out of REACH until we get the okay from the school district on the affidavit.
You may, as soon as you turn that affidavit into your school district, and some people recommend sending it certified mail, return receipt requested, but they're not signing the return receipts right now. So if you possibly can, I strongly urge you to take it and drop it off in person. But as soon as you have turned in your affidavit and your objectives, you are officially homeschooling. You do not need to wait.
Okay.
So, and although they send you the letter of approval, actually legally they don't even have to send you that. You are legally homeschooling the minute you hand in that notarized affidavit.
Okay. And then, sorry, I'm outside.
No, that's right.
Also, when they will probably be in school then for about 3 weeks. How does that work with hours? Can I count that toward?
I actually made a note to mention that. So any of the school days that they've been in already, like I use just the checkbox of 180 days.
Okay.
So if they've been in school for 14 school days, you check off 14 days.
Okay.
Yeah, their time in school counts.
Okay.
Your homeschooling, like, so they've like basically been dual enrolled for the school year to some degree.
Okay. And do we need to have like that a part of our portfolio at the end to show that they were in school with REACH for that time?
No.
Okay.
Just check those days off on a calendar.
Okay.
Count them towards your 180. That would be the only thing.
One question that has come up in the past is the fact that is whether or not you can opt out of the standardized testing. You cannot. You absolutely cannot. You can opt out when you were in public school. That's not an issue, but you cannot opt out of standardized testing as a homeschool parent.
Okay, that's good clarification, BeckiJo. Okay, do we have any other questions about complying with the law? Otherwise, okay, I'm going to move on to our second topic, and you guys have, been here for a while, so I don't want to leave anybody hanging, but I don't want to spend, time that you don't have. So, okay, we just wanted to cover briefly how to plan a homeschool year. This is a big topic, but we're going to try to just simplify it so that you have a little bit, we're like pointing you a little bit in a direction, and then you have some things to think about over the next week or so as you kind of get started. Okay. So first, I would encourage you, we just talked about objectives and like legal requirements and subjects that the state requires you to cover. But I would say as a homeschooler to think first about what you want for your child. And this may not just be academic. You could think about, these are things that I think about: habits, character, culture, like family culture, and then I also think about academics, and, I'm heavy on academics, so I don't want to belittle that, but it's all part of like this holistic view that I have of my children, that as a homeschooler, I have the privilege, to think about. And so I'll talk a little bit more about how we can go about thinking of those things, but I'm just trying to help you to think about the advantages of homeschooling and not just, your academic requirements. Okay, and then second, I would encourage you to think about your family's strengths and weaknesses, and also your limitations. So all of us have time limitations. Maybe we're trying to work full time, and sorry, I'm about to run out of charge. You might not be able to afford homeschool classes or online classes, and you're trying to do this on a shoestring budget. You might be like your husband's doing part of it and you're doing part of it. So we all have limitations, and you could think about like what they are, but also your strengths. Like my strength, my background is in art and my strengths are humanities, but one of my weaknesses is like math. So I have to be really careful that like I'm forcing my kids to do math consistently every day, and that, I'm not letting it fall by the wayside, or, science. I'm not, I always make sure that I sign my kids up for some kind of science elsewhere because I don't want to teach science. So you could think about these things. And there are times in your life where maybe you just need to concentrate on like the relationships between siblings or your relationship with your kids. Like this is a big transition. If you're pulling your kids out of traditional school and bringing them home, like how do they feel about that? Like that might just take a lot of time and energy to work through. And so, you could think about that as well. We don't want to put a lot of pressure on you that you have to do all of this stuff. We're going to, if you talk to BeckiJo and I, we will always tell you to simplify. Yeah. And our kids do a lot, and we're, like very busy people that, always want to take advantage of opportunities for our kids. But as a homeschooler, there's so much that you could be doing, but you can't do it all. And so you just have to simplify and kind of get back to basics. And that's like a constant thing that I have to do as a homeschooler. And so in elementary school, we would really encourage you to focus on reading and language arts and math. So like if your kid read a book today and did a math lesson, like you're great. Like anything you do other than that is just bonus. Because those are really the core skills and subjects that they need to cover. And the other subjects could just be covered like once a week, or maybe you do it, you take a break and you do art for a whole week and that's your art for the year, or maybe you outsource that. They do that in the evenings, or, they do that at a co-op. In secondary, so 7th through 12th, you want to focus on their skills and their credits. In junior high, focus on finding their interests so that when they're in high school, you know what to focus on, especially like, we can only pay for 2 classes. So are those going to be classes, what are you really interested in that I can't teach you well enough? And, we're going to spend our money there. We're going to spend our time driving to those things because you have established what their real interests are in junior high. So that's, kind of idealistic, but kind of a rule of thumb. Okay. So in terms of how long your homeschool day is, your kids, if they went to public school or private school, were probably in school for like 6 to 8 hours a day, but that's not appropriate in terms of amount of time to spend on homeschool. Homeschool is like wildly efficient because you're teaching one child what they need to know. And kids have kind of short attention spans, and they need to build the skill of paying attention for longer and longer periods of time. You don't want to exhaust them in kindergarten so that they don't want to study or do homeschooling with you by the time they're in 2nd grade. So this, you could screenshot this. I think it's also on the LAF Facebook page. But in preschool, 15 to 30 minutes of formal instruction or formal activity. And then if your child, wants to keep coloring the thing or wants to cut and paste another something or other, like, then go ahead and do that. But in terms of like time that you're spending forcing them to do formal schooling, 15 to 30 minutes is about right. And then it doesn't build very quickly. So like even a 3rd to 4th grader, 1.5 to 3 hours, depending on the maturity of your child, the academic bent of your child. And then in high school, 3.5 to 6 hours, depending on how serious they are. about academics.
Kandra and I both have had children who are homeschooled and have been in public school. So we have experience with both. I'm a former public school teacher, but I will say that my daughter will graduate this year with 29 credits. And I don't think we've ever spent an hour of doing a day of doing 6 hours straight or 6 hours of schooling. Right. It's just not necessary to learn the information and to earn the credits.
Because you could think of like homeschooling time is typically like super concentrated, especially teaching time is super concentrated. You're not leading kids through the hallway. You're not waiting for people to be quiet. You're just like teaching that one kid. And now, are there days where my boys have had to sit for 2 hours because they wouldn't do 15 minutes worth of math in an efficient
way? Yeah.
And I wasn't letting them get up and play because, like, absolutely. But that's not exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about like concentrated teaching time or concentrated school time. You know, if you've done 2 hours for an elementary school student, like you're okay. Okay. And then, like I said, simplify. It's very easy to get overwhelmed. Once you get into the homeschooling community and you kind of find out what's out there, you're going to feel like, oh, well, so-and-so is doing this and there's this program offered and this program offered. And like, you could just drive your kids all day, every day to activities and you wouldn't even scratch the surface. So, you know, it's like a mental training that you have to do as a homeschooler that, you know, you're only going to use one curriculum per subject and you're only going to, you know, maybe do 2 or 3 things outside the house or whatever, you know, but like constantly just try to simplify. Everything seems like a great program and curriculum, but just choose a few things that you really want to do well. And there's a lot of overlap. So like, just because that curriculum is great doesn't mean that your kids aren't getting that teaching from the curriculum that you're already using. And as you use more things and hear things from other people, you'll be able to find kind of what fits your family. Also, homeschooling, and I really want to emphasize this, is a great environment for incidental learning. So even though a school environment is set up to be a learning environment, incidental learning where kids kind of like where they go to the grocery store and they learn how to count, or they learn, I talk to my kids about like, how does insurance work or how do mortgages work? And those kinds of conversations are really fostered by the child being in the home. And so if your child can learn something in a 15-minute conversation, then you don't maybe need to do an economics lesson with a craft and a research paper. Like you could just be like, all right, my kid understands this, or you could take out your own electric bill and explain to them how it's calculated or whatever. And that is a great sort of incidental learning situation.
Baking is such a wonderful way to incorporate incidental learning. You've got fractions and measuring and how do ingredients work together. That comes down to chemistry because you're dealing with mixtures. It's just such a fun way to learn. Right. And one of the things that it could even be on a later slide, I don't know, don't compare yourself. As a homeschooler, 1 day a week going out to co-op was what I could deal with and still try to keep to some sort of a teaching schedule with my kids. I'm very type A. I'm an older mom. I knew people who did 2 or 3 co-ops a week. I couldn't do that and function. Do what works for your family, for your children.
But sometimes you have to remember they need to go to work 3 days a week.
Yes.
And it's a perfect situation for them. And their kids get out and they do stuff. And, so definitely like do what works for your family. The other thing to remember in terms of comparing, everybody acts like they're doing it awesome and their kids are so smart, and but maybe take everything that you hear with a grain of salt. Not every kid's a genius, and not every homeschooled family is perfect. Try to have a group of friends, like develop a support system. We'll talk about this another session, but like a group of friends that you can be a little bit honest with and that will be a little bit honest with you and kind of carry the burden of the struggle as much as, the great things that my kid's so smart and, we do 25 different activities outside of the house every month. Don't feel bad. Just don't feel bad about yourself.
And honestly, I was gonna clean up the mess behind me on my buffet, and I thought, nope, time to be real.
Yep.
I may
When you
be
came to our houses,
involved
you
in
were
other
not
things, but
impressed.
my house is a wreck. Something has to give.
That's right. That's right. Something has to give. That's very good advice. Okay. I'm very close to the end, and thanks for hanging in there, guys. I hope you're getting helpful information. All right. So one thing that I find really helpful is to brainstorm. And so I think about homeschooling, you know, from like, let's say, I think about the next year starting maybe in April until about June. And then I kind of do like a little bit of a brain dump. And I'm going to year 9. So I am starting to repeat things in terms of like, this is really important to our family and this works. And so, you know, for geography or Bible memory or Latin or something like that, you know, I'm just doing the next year's thing, or I'm planning it in the same format, but different content. So this is my 2 sons. Ari is 7th grade and Eris is 3rd grade. And so I just sort of said, okay, these are all of the subjects that we're going to cover. And this is roughly like the schedule that I'm going to keep every day. So we'll talk a little bit more about this, like, you know, in terms of actually carrying out your homeschool when we do a scheduling thing next week. But I just kind of wanted to give you the idea that you could just write down a bunch of ideas and then sort through it. That kind of helps me. You could also take your objectives list, like your subjects list, and just say, okay, what am I going to do? Like, because this might help you feel better or more like you had a plan, especially going in as a new homeschooler. How are you going to cover that subject? Like, I'm going to use this curriculum, or we're going to do like these 3 field trips for Pennsylvania history, or, you know, Dad's going to do science on Saturday night, you know, in the kitchen or something. Like, just, you could just list something that you're going to try to accomplish for each of the subjects that you feel you want to cover this year. And then you could look back on that and say, okay, you know, we've kind of let science fall by the wayside, but this was what we were going to do. Like, let's get it out and try to, you know, get back on the horse. The other thing is you could have goals for your kids that you make. A lot of homeschool mentor kind of people will say, make goals for each child. Like, they're going to learn their times tables this year. And, you know, we're going to read a chapter book that's more than 150 pages or whatever. You could just make a couple, I would say like 3 or 4 at the most, goals that you have for your child. We're going to go on 6 field trips this year or something. And then just try to look back at those every so often and see, am I on track to accomplish my goals? And don't make it complicated or long, or you'll get overwhelmed and then you'll be frustrated.
As my mom used to tell me, use the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid.
Right.
I know stupid's a bad word, but keep it simple. Don't reinvent the wheel. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. That's the joy of homeschooling.
And it's not because you're stupid or your kids are stupid. BeckiJo and I both have like really intelligent children who are high performing. We're not telling you this because we think, you know, we want you to dumb your kids down at all. We're just trying to help you understand, you know, the incidental benefits of homeschooling and the education that they're going to receive from all of the things that aren't academic. And then also, you know, just that they're going to accomplish so much with such little formal.
Yes, that's not talking about the academics, but more about the process.
Right.
It doesn't have to be super complicated in order to accomplish wonderful things.
A lot. Yeah, you'll accomplish a lot. Okay, so the learning curve is steep. I think this is my last, almost my last slide. Okay, hold on, sorry. Okay, the learning curve is steep, so give yourself time. I tell people I was in year 5. I have 4 kids. I was in year 5 before I felt like I hit my stride. The 4 years before that, I was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this because this is so hard. But I just, and not to intimidate you, I was also young and kind of stupid and, you know, overcomplicating things. But yeah, just be, you know, gracious with yourself. If your child read a book today, you're okay. Okay.
Amen.
Like, your kids learn, the best way for them to learn is to read, in terms of they can get so much information. So one of the things that as a homeschooler I'm trying to do is cultivate a reader. And so if your child is reading every day and doing a little bit of math, so that you don't get too far behind, like, you're okay. Lean on experienced homeschoolers. I used to interrogate people. I would just ask them like a million questions. I'd ask them, what curriculum are you using? What curriculums did you use? What were the hardest things that you encountered as homeschooling? Like, tell me how you solved this problem, that problem. My kid's not cooperating with this. And So experienced homeschoolers can be a great resource, and we've all been helped by other people who have gone before us. And so we're more than happy to help you as much as we can. And then you'll also find people that kind of homeschool the way you do or have the same personality and value system that you do. And so those are the people that you'll kind of go to over and over again. Find a support system, get into a community. It might be, you know, like at your church. It might not be a community of homeschoolers necessarily, but just people who are going to support you. It could be your family. You know, the grandparents take the kids on Friday so that you can take a nap, something like that. And then this is also why homeschool communities 1 day a week can be really helpful, because you almost get instantly put into a group of other homeschooling moms who are all there to kind of support each other and get to know your kids and, you know, build long-term relationships. That works pretty well, but we're not here to sell you laugh classes. Honestly, no. We just, you know, are excited for you to, you know, be able to do this and be with your kids. Okay. And then, so I'm big on Latin if you haven't figured that out. So Facina Lente is this Latin phrase that means make haste slowly. So even though you think you're going really slow, and not making very much progress, like you know, you're investing in your kids and you're really thoughtful about, like, do they really understand before we go into the next lesson? Or, you know, the most important thing is that my kid learned to tie their shoes, you know, before they graduate from kindergarten or something like that. So your child isn't getting behind. You are building your family culture around lifelong learning and strong family relationships. And so if you keep those things in mind, because even if your kid gets like 2 years behind in math, as kids get older, they get faster at being able to comprehend things more quickly. So if you get behind in math this year because your mom is having surgery and, you know, your mother-in-law died and, you know, I don't know, like some other, you know, crisis happened, it's okay. Like you can catch up in math. You could, you know, help your child in reading, you know, a little bit more in, you know, next month than you did this month or something like that. But your family culture, it can be a really important focus and be like an emotional grounding for your child, that you're really investing in this and providing for them to draw on for the rest of their life. Okay, and then BeckiJo gave me this is 10 Plan B homeschool days. So some days, like if you're not feeling, you know, you're maybe sick that day, or, you know, you just need a break. You guys feel like you homeschooled for the first month and you need to celebrate by taking a break, or you just feel like things are too intense, or you have one kid that needs a lot of attention that day because they're behind in math and the other kids are kind of running around like crazy people. These are things that you could do. You could read for the day. You could play an audiobook, do a movie, like an educational movie or a fun movie. Documentary, I guess, would be educational movie. You could just play games all day. Kids learn so much skill by doing board games and taking turns and counting and strategizing. All of that stuff is really valuable. You could do arts and crafts for the day. Hobby, science kit, like I'm sure we all have gotten science kits for our kids' birthdays that we've never done. You could pull that out one day. Go on a nature hike. So many things to learn.
There's even a hiking group through Homeschooling in York.
Right. So, right. And there's park days YHSA puts on and stuff. So if like you're feeling alone, reach out kind of on the internet. There's stuff like just people meeting like informally just because they're homeschoolers. If you can just find that stuff and show up to it, at least your kids will be around other kids for the day. If you're just feeling like, you know, I'm all by myself in my house and my kids are, you know, not wanting to do their math sheet. Okay. Does anybody have any questions or need any encouragement? This is it for my actual formal presentation. We made it all the way through and I can't see what time it is.
It is
6:08. So almost an hour, a little more. I meant it to be less than an hour. I'm sorry. I talked too much.
We took questions in the middle, remember?
That's right. We took questions in the middle. All right. Well, if nobody has any questions, or
it looks like Brittany, do you have a question again, or is that from the last question?
I think that was from the last time. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, I figured out how to take the hand away. Got it.
Fit right in with BeckiJo and I that were like slow at.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you have a private question or if you think of a question later, like go ahead. BeckiJo's information is what's out there, so contact her. But you know, you can also contact me. You could contact her for my email address if you want.
My cell number is hanging on the windows at Grace tonight because of
Oh,
this.
okay, there you go. So get in your car right now and drive over there and find her cell. It's also on Facebook. You don't have to.
Yes, it is. It's all over everywhere.
So you can call us. We both teach. BeckiJo is the leader at LAF. She's the head honcho person. And then I'm on her leadership team, and we both teach classes there on Thursdays. So if you're looking for an option, you have to pay for the classes. So some families, it's not the best option for them. But if you love us and you want to be like our best friends, then LAF. But if you just need information, reach out to LAF, LAF. Dash co-op.
It's www.
There you go.
LAFCO dash OP at Comcast. No, it's not. .com.
Yeah. So if you get on that website, you can figure out how to contact us also. And again, we're not trying to sell you LAF classes, but that's where to find us. We both live in Southern York County, and yeah, we'd love to help. We feel that our homeschooling experience has been really valuable for our children. And we both have pulled kids out of public school at various times. And I realize that that's what probably most of you guys are doing right now. And so we just want you to know that you have somebody to turn to, a little bit of support, a little bit of, resource, just, to jumpstart you.
And I've met with some families on Saturdays or in the evening. I've met to just sit down and help you get started. I'm happy to do that as well if that's something that you need, especially if you're kind of in where I'm just pulling my kids and help. I'm happy to do that and share with you some of the curriculums and things like that.
Yeah, and we're just like volunteering to do this. We're not trying to sell you a service.
No, absolutely.
Or anything like that. Like that is totally not what's happening here. We just care about this, and we're both Christians, and we care about just ministering to other people and building relationships with people who need emotional support, or they need information. If there's something that we can do, we just want to be servant-hearted to the community right now, which seems to have a fair amount of people who need this information.
We really believe that God has called us to this at this time. And,
right.
And so that's what we're doing. And there are homeschool consultants who do charge for some of this, but please don't ever feel that is not something that we do. We are doing this.
We are not consultants. We don't charge. No. BeckiJo will charge you if you use her as an evaluator in the spring.
If you can afford to pay.
So, yeah. So, and we just care about this. We feel called to this, and we want to support you. So anyway. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for attending. And, we love you guys. We love your kids. And we just hope you have a great year. Don't get discouraged.
Thank you.
We hope to see you next week at Grace in room 862. I will be sending out that correction. We thought it was 861, but they changed it on me. So it's 862. It's up right next to the Lord's Gym. It's just to the left of the Lord's Gym. And so we look forward to meeting you in person. Kandra will still be joining us through Zoom, but I will be there in person.
Yep. So you'll get to meet other moms and stuff if you want to come in person. And we'll also, if you need a Zoom link because you can't attend in person, let us know.
Yes. And I will have some of the folders with me then as well for people who would like some of those documents.
Yep. Okay.
All right. We'll see you all next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
It's this Thursday, correct? We start class?
Yes, we start in 2 days. I taught my first classes today, actually, for some high schoolers.
So on Thursday, we got to be there by 8:30?
8:30 or 8:45. 8:45
Okay.
is sign-in time.
Okie dokie. Have a great night, everyone.
All right. Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.